Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight, and those of you who are on live stream, thank you for joining us as well. I'll call the Village Council meeting to order at 7 p.m.
My lights.
Under Chair's announcements, I have no announcements to make, so we'll move on to comments from the public to the Council. Oh, thanks, Jason. There are 4 people who have signed up. The first is Ms. A. Merfendereski.
Good evening. Is this working?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Afsaneh Mirfendereski, 4620 North Park. Tonight I have a request regarding Page Park. As an architect and community activist, I led the petition effort to improve Page Park in 2020, with close to 120 residents signing the petition. To say that the process has been deeply disappointing is sadly an understatement. As you know, not a single qualified architect was used for the $850,000 project, and worse still, not a single permit was taken out. And after the project was completed, the county showed up and shut the place down. Over 15 months ago, the stop work order went in. Now, while I'm thankful for the Village Council for taking the permitting issue seriously, I think we've reached a point where we need an intervention, because it's taken longer to get the permits sorted out than the actual physical project construction itself. It's not normal. So I have a request here for you guys. Again, it comes from my professional background as well. I wanted to put in a request that, first of all, you work with an independent engineer who is experienced with park design, and put together a comprehensive list for the public with 2 columns. One, the permits that have been submitted and approved, and one, a list of all the outstanding permits, specific list, not generalities. Things that come to my mind are the condition of the soil underneath all of the circles, all of the concrete, the safety of the low walls with the sharp edges, ADA compliancy throughout the park, the assessment of all the footings that were poured into the park, the safety of the playground area, the safety of the pergola, and the footings underneath, etc. We need a comprehensive list of permits that are outstanding, and I wanted to recommend bringing an outside engineer to help you together with DPS to put it together. Finally, I wanted to also request that you post the list on the website so that residents just can go every week and see, okay, what's left to do, because we're just kind of walking blindly right now. I did want to recommend putting a Page Park committee together. We had a change election because of this mess, and I think this deserves a concerted effort by all of you. 4 of you were elected by my petition signees, or helped elected. So that's 30 seconds, right? Okay, so I hope a separate committee could be put together. I think if we have a comprehensive list of what remains to be done, so that we're not just blindfolded and come in and say, oh, handrails, oh, pergola. No, there's a whole list of items, and DPS and an independent engineer can help you put it together, post it on the website, and we can go and look at it every week. Thank you.
Thank you. Al Muller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members. My name is Al Muller, and I live in the Elizabeth. Let me begin with something pleasant, and that is the park behind us. It's never looked more splendid. The hydrangea in front of the library, beautiful white blossoms, the red and the blue over here. And the necklaces, you may not have noticed, it took them many years to figure out how to put those, but there are necklaces of flowers around many of the trees. It's a beautiful park. It took a long time, as unfortunately much in the village takes, and I do ask your patience for the beleaguered Page Park, which once it is done, I think you will find ways to improve upon it, certainly, but it will be a new park that you'll be able to be very proud of. Tonight, my comments, though, are mainly towards another topic that's come up often, and that is the famous capital expenditures. The capital budget and the operating budget, there was a lot of discussion, the Finance Committee, the Treasurer, but basically, There are two budgets. One is for capital improvements, and the other is for the operating expenses. The operating expense budget you have approved after a great deal of work by your Finance Committee and the full council. But I would ask that you post on the website, and the next time you have a Finance Committee meeting, discuss what was, I think, a council project a few years ago to get guidelines on what future capital projects there would be. And you do have a list of approximately $1 million or so of projects. They're guides. They don't say when to do them, but you certainly can discuss. I think it needs the publicity, though, so that we can be discussing apples and apples, not apples and oranges. And I think it's very simple. You put a monthly statement every month along with the treasurer's report of the operating budget, a statement of what capital expenditures have come that month. We do it in the condominiums, and there aren't that many that the village will have, but then the public can see it. And I think the finance report should be published. I know you get it every month. I think it should be published on the website so people can see it before this meeting, and they may have questions. The line items are very interesting. Someone may say, why are we spending more money for lawyers? Every line item is listed for the council, but the village doesn't see that. Maybe it's posted later. Last month, sadly, the treasurer's report didn't even include the summary. So even I had trouble figuring out how much money was in each thing. Please do something every month, and of course, at the end of this month, there'll be a yearly summary for everything, and I'd be very interested in how much was spent in the capital budget, how much was spent on the capital budget, and of course, the line items as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Jason, can you close the door? Oh, did you? There's been...
We want mosquitoes in here.
Okay, thanks. Santanu Basu, did I pronounce your name correctly?
That's perfect.
Thanks.
I live in 4450 South Park, and I've been living here only for 9 months. The experience has been really pleasant and everything nice. Except for last weekend, I had an unpleasant experience coming from the metro station to home. And I think the lighting in the Western Avenue exit area is very low. And I was wondering whether there is something that can be done about it. There was a transient person who kind of started yelling and chasing 4 of us. Finally, I had to call the cops and all. And it's just because when you try to get out from the metro to Western Avenue exit, it's very dark over there. Just a few more lights, I think, will make it safer. That's all.
Thank you very much. Stephanie Clipper.
Hi, good evening. I also wanted to compliment everyone responsible for the park. It looks gorgeous. The hydrangeas are lovely. And I also wanted to compliment the village center staff on the Chesterton trip. It was exceedingly well organized and well carried out, and it was lovely, and it was affordable, and it gave a lot of people a chance to get out and experience Maryland. And on a little more sour note, I want to say that I would encourage the council to work towards the next iteration of the Securitas contract, making sure that we transition to a point where the staff are not permitted to break the law in the process of issuing tickets. Last Friday, she blocked the lane that was right by Potbelly. She's done this consistently. She actually blocks more traffic than she does not block. And it strikes me that if you look at DC, how they do on-foot ticketing, that I realize this contract's in place and we're somehow bonded with this staff and contract, but as you all move forward, I would encourage you to take a look at how we can have this revenue come in without breaking the law in the process of issuing tickets. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I'm done with the list of people who signed in. Okay, in that case, are there any comments from the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to the mayor's announcement.
Please join us for our annual Independence Day celebration on Thursday, July 4th at the Village Center and outside in Humphrey Park. Announcements will be posted on the village website through our email and text alert system and in the July newsletter.
Thank you, Mayor White. What time does it begin?
2 o'clock, 2 to 4.
Okay. Moving on to the approval of the minutes for the May 20th council meeting. Councilwoman Salt.
Thank you. I move to adopt the minutes of the May 20th council meeting, which are behind tab 2.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Salt and supported by Councilwoman Tyler to approve the minutes for the May 20th meeting. Is there any discussion? I would make one observation and one suggestion to add the missing times in 4 places, the update on Page Park, the discussion on trash removal, the discussion on security parking enforcement, and then the discussion on the off-duty police agreement. Make it easier.
I'm sorry, would you mind repeating that? I'll
Sure.
make a note of it.
Sure. I'm suggesting that we add the times
Right.
in to the update on Page Park, the
Okay.
discussion on trash removal, the discussion on the security parking enforcement contract, and lastly, on the off-duty police agreement.
So do you want to approve contingent on those, or
Yes,
do you want to
contingent-
hold off
No,
until?
no, contingent on those would be fine. Yeah, assuming there is support for the amendment. Okay, Councilwoman Tyler, thank you. Great. So any questions about, other observations or questions about the minutes? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to the treasurer's report. Councilman Schaefer.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to everyone for joining us. I thought this would be the first time I didn't have to talk about the budget, but let me just make a comment. We don't have 2 budgets. We don't have a capital budget and an operating budget. We eventually will have a schedule of capital improvements, but it's one budget, and the budget's supposed to incorporate the operating expenses and the capital expenses. And the point I was trying to make last month is we don't do that. We don't show what our capital expenses are, and that's why I had up on the board I think it was the Village of Chevy Chase, to show they do incorporate their capital expenses into their one budget. Town of Somerset does the exact same thing. And the reason you need to do that is so people can not only see the picture on one document, but you need a way to fund future capital expenses, because if you just put money in a pot, which is what we've done, but if you don't provide a mechanism to fund that pot going forward, you'll just run out of money. And that's why it needs to be in one place and not scattered in different documents.
Councilman Schaefer, that's a comment rather than getting into a discussion with
Well,
it.
it was a follow-up on the
It's
presentation last
just a
month.
comment, thanks.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
done with that.
Thanks.
So what I really wanted to do, since we're not talking about the budget anymore, and we are like now 2 months into our second year, so I wanted to just sort of step back and talk about a lot of the accomplishments and changes that have taken place related to our finances over the last year, because it's been a lot. So as treasurer, one of the first things that I did was I said we needed to have an automated payment system, because even coming out of COVID, we were still writing all our checks manually, and Donna really spearheaded that effort. And now almost all our checks are paid through an automated system. We still cut some checks manually, which is mostly because the vendors request it, so we accommodate them, but it makes it much easier. People don't have to, they don't have to get signers here to sign, and you can do it online. You could ask questions online. So that was a huge step forward. I also made a pledge that we would put all of our major contracts up for review. The goal wasn't necessarily to replace them, but just to review them, make sure, even if we kept the vendor we had, which we've done in most cases, that we were getting the best value for our money. And that started at the first Finance Committee meeting when we had on the agenda putting the shuttle up for review. That led to an effort now that's being headed by Councilman Arr and Mayor White. And hopefully, if they can find a suitable recommendation, and then we give 6 months notice, maybe February, March, we could have a new shuttle in place. Most of our other contracts have come up for reviews. The plant contract, the maintenance of the park fountain, and which includes some other pieces with irrigation. The parking enforcement, somebody commented on, which we've, I think, reviewed for, or renewed for maybe 6 or 7 years. We've now put that out for bids. The waste management contract, we're taking that up today. And last and not least is the off-duty police agreement, which we've talked about when it was put into effect. There was no mechanism to ever review it. There was no real study or analysis. The agreement doesn't even have a set number of hours. So that was a Finance Committee recommendation back in February that the council should take that up and review it. I supported that. Councilmember Measy supported that. And that's obviously still ongoing. We made some changes around the budget. In past years, what we would do is we would pass the budget in March with a placeholder for salaries. Then in June, we would pass the actual adjusted salaries. And unless those numbers were exact, our budget was out of whack on day one. So we moved up the salary review, so now it's incorporated into the budget process. So what's in the budget reflects the actual salaries we expect to pay. We made changes to the budget. We moved some items around from different expenses where they just made more sense. We've changed some of the footnote references. So hopefully, if you do look at the budget, it's easier to follow. I was going to comment on payroll, that we had moved to a better payroll software, but there's some problems with it, so not yet. But hopefully we can get a better, more nationally recognized payroll software that would make the data more secure and the funds more secure. I mentioned capital expenses. We now have, for the first time, an account where eventually we'll have a $1.5 million after we receive the air rights money. We still need a lot more to do with that account. We need to, as I mentioned, provide funding annually for that account. And eventually, I'd like to restrict those funds, so it can only be used for capital purposes. Otherwise, it's just, it's aspirational. We say it's for capital expenses, but we can rate it anytime we want. And the last thing I wanted to mention is cross-training for the managers. Right now, we only have one employee who runs payroll and runs checks. And it's not fair to her. It's not fair to the staff or the village. You can't be in that situation. And I've asked, and the managers have both agreed, to be cross-trained on both of those systems so they can run checks or run payroll independently. And I've been promised by next week that will be done. It got held off partly because of the payroll system issue, but that hopefully will be done. So that's a lot. So I wanted people to be aware of what goes on, because not every decision or action is taken here and discussed here. And as always, if you want to meet with me, I have office hours by appointment. Our fiscal year ends June 30th. So next month, I should be able to talk about where we wound up for the year. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us on to the village manager's report.
Yes, 2 quick items. Number one, we have scheduled a training session for the entire staff for de-escalation training. This is offered by the Montgomery County Police, Police Officer Damon Johnson, to help people who work in public buildings deal with potential incidents or difficult situations. So that's coming up this week. Second item, we just learned from Washington Gas, we got a notification today, and we posted this on the website, that they're going to be doing some work on River Road starting June 24th and going through till September 14th with some lane closures, including the intersection of Western and River Road near us. The southbound right lane will be closed, and there will be a sidewalk closure on the southwest side of the intersection. So we wanted to alert everybody to that. There will also be some work further away from us on River Road, like by Goldsboro, and I think out by the Beltway as well. So this is posted on our website, and we'll update as the job progresses if there's any new information. Thank you.
Thank you. Takes us on to committee reports. The first is, yes, go ahead.
I noticed some no parking signs, you know, wrapped around the trees on North Park. What is that about?
That's for a crane at the Willoughby, which will be on Wednesday.
Wow, it's
Yeah, it's
broader than what I think a crane
It's a big
would-
crane.
Okay.
Yeah, the Willoughby's doing
I
some
didn't realize
major work on the
it was
roof.
that
Yeah, and
much.
they did this before, and this is basically a repeat of the same type of job. Yeah,
Thank you.
it should be done in the one day. Yes.
Okay, committee reports. First is a report on the ad hoc committee on development meeting of May 29th. The lion's share of that meeting was taken up by a presentation, Scott Dickey of the Montgomery County Green Bank, and discussion among the attendees and committee members as well. Green Bank offers a range of funding to businesses, and it turns out governments as well, to assess making infrastructure greener, to fund projects which will make infrastructure greener, and can assist with those activities as well. And the village manager has, I believe, the information from Scott Dickey. If anyone here is interested in learning more about the Green Bank and the resources that it has available. And there will be a meeting with Scott, follow-up meeting with Scott Dickey to understand how the village might take advantage of some of these resources. It's my understanding that several buildings in the village already make use of the Green Bank. But there may be others other building owners, building managers who are considering greening their infrastructure or having to benchmark their infrastructure, and funds are available for that. Moving on, a report from the Ad Hoc Shuttle Bus Committee on bus proposals. Sure.
So if we, the village, got funding for an infrastructure project, that would be a loan that we would have to pay back, right?
It will depend upon how the funds to the village are arranged.
Meaning?
Meaning there are various ways in which the Green Bank can provide funding. For example, often the funding wouldn't be directly to the village. It would be funding of a contractor that has an
Okay.
arrangement with the Green Bank to get work done or
Okay.
to do an assessment.
So in that case, it wouldn't be subject to our debt limit, right?
That's right. It
Okay.
would not be. Basically would be a grant to another entity. Yep. Thanks. Sure. Go ahead, Councilwoman Taylor.
Also, if it depends, as you just stated, it depends on the project. They have funding, they have subcontractors, they have connections where if there was something we were doing that other entities were a part of already, they could connect us into that program. There's some things cost, some things don't. So it really isn't one answer, yeah. But it wouldn't affect us in what you were asking.
Yeah, their typical arrangement, Councilman Salt, is to work with a contractor for a project. But they are, as they described in the meeting, flexible to all kinds of arrangements. Mayor White?
The shuttle bus committee did not meet this month because we are waiting to hear back from Atlantic on a possible demo bus that we can examine here in the village. And the managers have been in contact with Atlantic, and they, I think they believe that they can produce a bus for us to take a look at. Certainly a smaller bus than what we have now. So we're sort of in a holding pattern waiting for Atlantic.
Any questions for Mayor White? Seeing none, move on to old business. Update on the prospective tenant or tenants for the Red House. Councilman Orr?
Thank you. We had a pretty productive month. We started, we met with the real estate attorney, Ms. Irving, a couple of weeks ago, finalized our engagement letter. She took a tour of the facility to take a look at what we were talking about with respect to the accessibility renovations, also to kind of better understand the individual proposals. We also met with the broker, got more information about each of the prospective tenants. We were trying to do a bit more of an apples-to-apples comparison, so we were able to get some more information, particularly from 2 of the 3 tenants, in order to be able to compare the proposals side by side. We've also begun setting up meetings with the 3 primary prospective tenants, one-on-one meetings starting next week to kind of talk through the plans, and we'll meet at the Red House in order to kind of walk through and get a better understanding of their vision for the space. In parallel, we're collecting requirements for the RFP that we'll ultimately issue for the accessibility renovations and the minor modifications to the kitchen entrance. The hope is that we'll be able to we'll put out an RFP and then bring on board the appropriate contractors to begin that work as we're negotiating the lease agreement with the prospective tenant that we ultimately select, so that we can do kind of both in parallel. We expect at least a few to several months of negotiation once we've identified a prospective tenant. So rather than losing that time, we'd like to get ahead on the work that we already anticipate doing. And so the hope is that we'll have the 3 one-on-one meetings, evaluate the written proposals, any modifications the prospective tenants would like to make after walking the facility and answering our questions. And then the hope is the committee will make a recommendation to the council.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to an update on the Page Park permit application. Councilman Mazie?
Thank you, Bowie. At our last meeting, I reported that we had received contradictory information from the county about whether a new ramp needed to be constructed leading up to the pergola. We have now received information that such a ramp will not be necessary, pending documentation that will demonstrate that substantial accessibility improvements have been made. The contractor is preparing the relevant documents along with the final life safety forms that need to be submitted to the county, and they should be ready to go by the end of this week or early next week. We continue to struggle with the design and fabrication of the required handrails. Last week, our structural engineer, who must sign off on the handrail design, requested changes from the fabricator concerning the hardware that will be used to anchor the handrails. The fabricator disagreed with the engineer's requests, arguing that he was engaging in overkill and that the changes that he asked for were not needed. Julian had a full and frank exchange of views with the fabricator, indicating that the engineer's approval was what we needed and not the approval of the fabricator, and the fabricator ultimately acceded to the engineer's request. So those specifications are now, or shortly will be, with the engineer for his final sign-off. Let me end with a few observations on the issue of accessibility. There's no doubt that the park design has substantially increased the accessibility of Page Park compared with how it was previously, when the park was essentially inaccessible to people with any mobility issues. Once the park is open, the council can decide if it wishes to take additional steps to further enhance accessibility, or to take other steps that they may wish to take to improve the design of the park. Residents continue to ask me and my colleagues in Julian when the park will be open. The unsatisfactory yet most honest answer is we can give is that we do not know. Opening the park depends upon our contractor, our engineer, and the county getting on the same page. I've heard suggestions from residents and others that we should fire the contractor, that we should sue the contractor, and even more radical proposals. Steps which would make many of us feel better, but would undoubtedly delay the project even more. The wisest step at this point is to keep pushing with the current cast of characters, and we are indeed making progress. Let me end by saying Julian, along with Jason, has spent an enormous amount of time attempting to resolve the various issues that have arisen and to get us to the point where the county has all of the information that it requires for the park to open. I want to acknowledge their work and hope that my colleagues will join me in that sentiment.
Thank you, Councilman Macy. Questions? Councilwoman Sol?
It's more of a comment. I'd just like to share what other people have been asking me is, they would like to know what's left to be done and the timeline for doing it in understandable terms. And I'm sure you've heard that from other people, but I'm obligated to pass that on. I've heard that. And I'm sure you've heard it too, several. One of the keys is in understandable terms. Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to discussion, vote on the trash removal contract proposals. Village Manager Mansfield.
Yes, this is a carryover from last month. We talked about having gone out for bid for the trash contract. This is a 3-year contract for the containers in the Village Center, in the public parks, and on North Park Avenue, 16 total, plus a couple recycling bins. We did receive 7 proposals, 4 of which are considerably more than the other 3. The lowest 3 is what we focused on, including the incumbent Trash Away. And we did provide some additional information in the table that you see about some surcharges that they have. They have a fuel surcharge and an environmental surcharge that is fixed for the first year, but then variable for future years. And the other 2 low bidders, Casella and CJ Consulting, do not have these charges and are a little bit less than Trash Away. So Trash Away is the highest of the lowest. We're still recommending continuing with Trash Away, mainly because they've done great work here, and we have had no complaints for their performance here in terms of waste removal. We did check references on a couple of the others. CJ received very good references. Casella, not quite as good, but still positive. But we've been very pleased with Trash Away overall.
Thank you. Any discussion about this proposal? Councilman Schaefer?
So, I'm certainly willing to. So I'm willing to, accept your recommendation to go with Trash Away. The concern, though, is starting with year 2, they're not telling us what they're going to charge. So would they be willing to lock in that fuel and environment surcharge at the current rate? Otherwise, it's really a blank check. They can raise that fuel from 6% to 15%.
Well, it's based on the variable, the average price of diesel fuel, so they wouldn't just be able to pick a number. It has to relate to as the footnote.
They're setting the rate. It's not tied to it, So I mean, or not exceed the current surcharge. I mean,
yeah, we can go back to them and negotiate the fuel surcharge itself is based on that actual number, so that's something anybody can see. So that's not a.
It's tied to an index, or?
Yeah, it's tied to average price of diesel fuel as reported by the U.S. Department of Energy Information Administration.
And the other surcharge?
On highway.
the environment?
The environmental one is floating, yeah, that's not fixed to a specific number. That's based on recycling and landfill rate increases, changes in disposal location, fuel cost increases, and regulation changes. So that's a little bit more variable, yes.
So, and that's the concern. We're really saying just, and so that's, I would approve it if they would lock in these surcharges at these rates. Or
Thank you, Councilman Schaefer. Councilwoman Tyler?
I agree with Roy. I understand everything you're saying with the fuel charges, and there's some things you can't change and you can't lock in on. However, I think it is worth to ask a percentage of what they anticipate for the other types of charges, the environmental charges. And that is a floating, because nobody knows how they're going to do that. But if we can come up with something that is possibly compared to what is being charged in the community now, and when I say the community, within everywhere, to see who else is being charged an environmental charge, to see if we can negotiate something in there and then see if they'll agree to it. I'm more concerned when the companies, I've worked with Trash Away before, so I don't have a problem with them. But two things I have. I get concerned when you have companies that want it but don't have a fuel charge, don't have a surcharge, don't have an environmental charge. It's going to come. And they may try to figure out in the second year how to slap it in there on us. So I tend to be leery when you know that these are normal charges that come through. The other question I have is that, and this is an easy, quick yes or no, but if the tenant to the Red House and their pickup of their trash, is that included with us as part of ours, or will we negotiate not to pick theirs up?
No, the tenant would be responsible for their trash removal.
Okay.
That would not be part of the village contract.
Okay.
Councilman Measy?
As I read the information, I take it our only concern is the environmental charge. The fuel charge, according to the footnote, seems to be pegged to a widely accepted index at the bottom, which is the U.S. Department of Energy numbers and so on. So that's not the issue. The issue is simply the environmental charge, which seems can be a bit ambiguous. So if we could negotiate something in which the environmental charge that might be added is a product of negotiations with the village each year, with the anniversary date or something of that sort, then they can make the case that they need more because of whatever they've said here, changing needs, changing factors, and so on. Then I think we could be comfortable with that.
So we could ask them for a cap or a range or something like that? Because right now it's shown at 3.7% for the first year of the deal, and then it's years 2 and 3 would be variable.
Yeah.
I think the cap is a better idea.
Yeah.
And I think if you go in knowing it already based on some other areas, other locations, to see what they've paid on the environmental charge, then you are better equipped to go in and discuss it.
Other, Councilman R?
I'm in agreement with the rest of the members on the issue of the cap. I did just want to say that I know we had talked at the last meeting about the presentation and kind of reorganizing the information. So I just appreciate the extra work. It made it much easier to digest. So thanks for taking the extra time.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? I have one about the fuel charge, and I've noticed in other areas where we pay fuel, it's based upon an average or somebody's index. Would it be advantageous to us to simply pay the cost when the trucks are refueled rather than having it based upon an index? Yeah, go ahead, Councilwoman Salt.
How do you know that portion of when they fuel up is attributable to our work for us? They're going lots of places, so.
Yeah.
fact, when they come through here, they're probably doing the condos also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Is there a motion?
Could I?
Yes, go ahead,
you know,
Councilman
so,
Mason.
As I understand it, we're prepared to support the staff's recommendation that we go with trash away, and the only concern is to nail down the environmental charge. Is that correct?
I think that's what it looks like.
Could-
Would you
could-
like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to that effect. Somebody can put it into the words.
Okay. Is there support for that motion, which is wordless at the present time? Yeah, Councilman Orr?
I have faith.
Okay. Councilwoman Salt? The motion, okay,
You want me to take a try?
yeah.
I move that we support the staff's recommendation that we contract with Trash Away for our trash removal services with the provision that the environmental surcharge be negotiated by the village manager with the contractor.
Can I make a slight modification on that?
Yeah, sure.
To approve the proposal from Trash Away, pending negotiations with between the village manager and contractor on a cap for an environmental surcharge. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, except that, you know, cap means there may be other ways to control this besides a cap. And there may be, I think.
Okay.
Let's not make reference to the cap, and let's let Julian in his discussions with Trash Away.
Right.
He knows our
The benefit
concerns.
of a cap is budgetary certainty, though. Yeah. But this is a low
Yeah.
contract,
Yep,
so.
I've got Julian?
Just for clarification, if there's no agreement on their side for any kind of cap or anything, what's the fallback plan? Are we coming back and saying we don't want them at all, or revisit with another contractor, or just imagining that scenario?
Councilwoman Tyler?
I personally would not put cap. That's why I kept saying, go and, if you can, talk to surrounding communities to find out what the variance is in what they're being charged and somebody else is being charged, so that when you do have the discussion, you have a percentage, a figure or something already in your mind to know, okay, we're not going to go past 4%, or we're not going to go past 6%, or whatever it is, but have something that showed you did some comparison everywhere else. And granted, this is a smaller place, but it has no bearing on the size of the community. It's a charge that has to be paid sooner or later by everybody in a business like this. So I think you'd be better off asking others, what do they pay, and then come up with something that's comparable and reasonable and acceptable that we can work with. I don't think anybody's going to give you and approve a cap. I just don't. If they did, fine, but I think others would have done it.
Can I restate what I have, or?
Sure.
To approve the proposal from Trash Away pending negotiations with the village manager and vendor on an environmental surcharge.
That's perfect.
Okay,
I couldn't have said it better.
thank you.
I'd like a count on or a voice
got
call.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, any other discussion about this? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. First, all those in favor, say aye. I know, I understand. Did you, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Would you like a roll call vote on this?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
R,
Yes.
R4, Measy,
Yes.
Measy 4, Schaefer,
Yes.
Schaefer 4, Salt 4, Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler 4, White,
Yes.
White 4, Pastrunk.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one
Yes,
question?
Councilman Schaefer.
So, Julian, it's just.
The motion carries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just, since it's the same vendor, do we actually have to give notice on the old contract, or it just kicks in once you reach an agreement with them?
It'll kick in. I mean,
Okay.
we have a, yeah, I mean, we'll need to do a separate contract for 3 years, so the terms will be the same, but
Okay.
the difference now is it's a 3-year fixed-term contract, whereas before it was automatically
Right. Okay.
renewing, so that needs an amendment or you
Well,
know,
no, it should be a new contract.
or,
Yeah.
or a new contract with the same
Yeah.
other terms.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, that takes us to discussion vote on the security parking enforcement contract proposals. Village Manager Mansfield.
Yes, another follow-up from last month. We had advertised for bids for the parking enforcement contract. We had received 10 proposals, and we presented them last month. And there was a request for some additional information and comparison between the preferred ones. We were asked to come back with 3 preferred vendors, and we actually had 2 that really stood out for us, but we put in the third, which happens to be the low bidder, to respond to the council request. So we have Premier Security, Team Signal, and Tactical. We favored Team Signal, very strong presentation, terrific references. They provided a monthly car charge, whereas the other 2 include the vehicle charge, so we extrapolated that to an hourly charge for the vehicle itself, which brings them up to $36.76, including the vehicle. So they're in between the low bid and the highest of the preferred ones, which is Premier. So we're recommending Team Signal.
Okay, the recommendation from the village manager is to accept the proposal from Team Signal. Any discussion? Yes, Councilwoman Tyler?
I'm glad you clarified on the vehicle, because that was and you broke it down, because I wanted to understand how does that vary in there. Also, the pricing, the vehicle cost, is that comparable or close to what it would be if we had to pay with the others?
The vehicle cost is included with the others, so we don't have the separate cost for that.
So if
The
we-
Team Signal included it as a separate monthly charge, so we had to turn that into an hourly.
So
to compare
that
the-
comes out to, let's just say, if we went with Team Signal, what does it mean that we're paying for the vehicle? Does that mean maintenance? Does that mean gas? Does that mean, is that on top of the 502 a month?
The 502 a month is for the second year of the contract. For the first year, it's $478
Okay.
a month.
So
And that's, the way Team Signal presented it, it's a separate charge, whereas the others included it. But that does include everything associated with the vehicle, providing it, maintaining it, insuring it. So that's a comprehensive charge for the vehicle itself.
So do we rent the vehicle, or do they rent the vehicle and give us the bill?
It's their vehicle.
It's
They
their
provide
vehicle.
the vehicle.
And so we pay for renting their vehicle, and we pay for the maintenance, the gas, I guess that's the gas
Yes.
included that. So
Yes.
everything that goes with that vehicle.
That's right.
Okay.
Councilman Schaefer?
Yeah, I thought that fee covered everything associated with the car.
It does.
Right, so we're not paying separately for gas and car maintenance and all of that.
That she asked the same question you did.
No, I
No,
thought you were.
the response was
I thought
that
you
it
were
is
saying it was
all,
an additional
it's
charge.
all included in.
Okay, all right.
Yep. Councilwoman Sol?
I'd like to join Councilman Aaron, thanking you for doing the additional work on the spreadsheet, comparing the bids. I went ahead and made a 3-year total for the 3 for non-holiday days. And I want to thank you for giving me complete copies of the proposals, which I got today, and your notes on the recommendations and references, which I agree were all very good. You did make mention of a presentation. Did the bidders give you, obviously they give you a written proposal, did they also do a presentation for you? Or did you
We're,
mean?
we're, yeah,
by-
we're referring to the written proposal.
Okay, so
was-
the presentation meant that you mean the document?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not a official presentation. It was a presentation of their proposal that was, included some information that some of the others didn't have.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks for the clarification. So we have 3 bids. The difference between the lowest one and the next one up is about 30 grand over 3 years. And even the next one up is about 71 grand. I really don't understand why the lowest bidder can't do a perfectly fine job providing, a uniformed individual issuing parking tickets. And really why the taxpayers should pay more for exactly the same service. That completely stumps me. And, unlike the prior contract we were talking about, which is, I would call very low dollar volume, this is a significant contract, and there's, in my view, significant differences in the bid prices for these 3. So, if we are spending more money to get exact same service, that's money we can't spend on other things. We can't provide service. It's less money for pay increases. It's less money for capital expenditures, that kind of thing. And we've heard before that there was talk of whether some of these bidders would take on an individual working for an existing contractor. And I really think, every contractor is a free agent. They can hire whoever they want. Every employee is a free agent. They could start somewhere and quit. They could. I don't think our job is to be the HR office for a contractor. So I really believe we should go with the lowest bidder in this case, which, whatever their name is, Tactical Security.
Thank you, Councilwoman Salt. Any other comments from the council? Yes, Councilman Schaefer.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify something, because I know we've had some issues with the Securitas billing. For all of the bidders, we only are going to pay when somebody's on-site working. Is that correct? There are not going to be any payments for hours when no one's here?
Right.
Okay.
And that needs to be specified in the contract
Sure.
language, yes.
Okay, and the other thing is the rate, whatever it is, that rate includes everything. It includes holiday, it includes training, vacation, sick. All of that gets paid by the vendor to whatever. We're not going to get any additional bills on top of that rate. Is that
With the exception of overtime, but in
Which is
reality,
not-
we're not doing
Right.
overtime.
right?
really,
But there's
in a
no, we're
practical
not
sense.
expecting any additional charges for anything that the vendor incurs.
Correct.
Okay. The other point I wanted to make, we've been focusing here on the expense side, and Councilmember Salt said over 3 years, the recommended vendor is $30,000 more than Tactical Security. There's another issue. Our parking revenue last year, and this is from the audited financial statements, it was almost $291,000 in revenue. This year, we still have one more month, but it's probably going to be about $250,000. And that's an apples-to-apples comparison. Same employees, same vendor, same contract. So the revenue fell $40,000, which to me sort of argues maybe for making a clean break and letting this new vendor decide how they want to do it. Because if you add the $40,000 a year for 3 years, that's $120,000 plus the $30,000 in additional fees. You're looking at $150,000, possibly more, between the decreased revenue and the additional expenses. And as Councilmember Selt said, it's hard to justify. It's a much bigger increase than it first appears on the surface.
Thank you. Other comments? If there,
Just
Yes,
one question.
Councilman Orr.
Recognizing that qualified alternate has been an issue with the current vendor, did you inquire, do you have any additional information about any of the 3 of these other contractors that gives you any pause about their ability to provide, to staff the full scheduled time with trained and qualified alternatives?
Difficult question to answer because, and this is a comment I wanted to make in general, I mean, particularly with this contract, it's very difficult to find qualified people, and we've gone through lots of different security contract vendors who have provided, less than qualified people out here. So I would not say it's any kind of guarantee that the low bidder is going to provide exactly the same level of service as the others. I think that's very much a question. They certainly present well. They indicated to us that they have an excellent training protocol, that they have qualified people. But parking tickets is a different type of work than most security guards do. Most security companies are not familiar with parking ticket enforcement specifically. Most security guards do not write parking tickets. They're patrolling, looking at a monitor, guarding a particular building, something like that. This is a really different type of security guard job, which is why we've had, we've cycled through a lot of different vendors and personnel here. I strongly recommend holding on to Monica because she's been one of the best that I've seen here in many years and produces, a tremendous amount of ticket revenue every year just by herself. I think the issue is not with her, it's with the lack of support for her with trained backup people. That's been the clear issue with Securitas, which is why we want to change away from them.
But we could have some confidence.
It is somewhat unknown in terms of who else you get post Monica or as a substitute for Monica with any of these companies.
But you have some confidence that these three that made this second pass at least have a pipeline and a deep enough bench that, recognizing that everyone's sort of in the same boat, nothing in these three proposals gave you any pause about their ability to provide backups in the event the primary is unavailable.
That's right. And they do have good training protocols, which Securitas is not, despite what they say in their proposal, they're not, we haven't seen no evidence of any kind of training protocol for them at this site with our contract.
Councilman Mazie?
I appreciate the concerns of my colleagues. This is an area that Julian has a great deal of experience with, and as whatever that revenue happens to be this year, it's still a significant amount of revenue for the village. I know that we have some differences on this, but and I'm not sure how they would be resolved, but perhaps it might be useful to see where we are. So I'll make a motion to support the staff's recommendation that we go with Team Signal.
Is there support for that motion? Mayor White? There's been a motion to support the recommendation of the village manager to issue the contract with Team Signal. Is there any discussion on that motion? Councilman Schaefer?
Yeah, I just, and first of all, in terms of being the best vendor we've seen, we've had Securitas for what, like 7 years or 8 years? So we haven't seen other vendors really to compare them to for at least 7 years. And there's an out clause in the contract, right?
Right.
And is it 30 days, 60 days?
I think it's 60 days. And
Okay.
Right now, we're in a 1-year contract with them.
But is
that
it
we
60
worked
day
out
out
separately,
clause?
yes.
Right, so I don't understand. I mean, it's one thing if we're keeping the vendor that we have, and certainly that's a reason to pay more, to consider paying more money, which we did last month with the plan contract. We just did it with waste management, but we're comparing two unknowns. And when we know one of them is 30,000 more over 3 years, and we're keeping basically, I hate to say an individual, but it looks like we are, where the revenue is off by 40,000. It's not an assumption. That's where we are. I just don't see the justification, because worst case scenario, 60 days, we can go to Team Signal. So we really don't have a solid basis for picking one over the other.
Councilman Tyler?
I agreed, just like Councilman Mazie stated, I agree with what Julian and Jason and staff has recommended. Julian and I have had conversations about this type of security work. This is a small niche. I would have run from Securitas a long time ago. They are known internationally, and they are also known for not living up to what they write and say. There are two companies, Julian and I talked about it last meeting, which was Premier and Team Signal. And to stay with somebody just because they don't cost that much, they're the pits. And I don't say that in public about companies. Securitas is terrible. They do not treat their people right. They don't train their people. They say they do all these things. They don't. So it may be cheaper to pay them and waste the time of getting out 60 days, 30 days. We're wasting money. If we go to another company and we don't like them, then we can get out of that. But just to stay with them, because of whatever reason besides the cost that much, I don't agree.
Councilman R? No?
Yeah, I'm not recommending we stay with Securitas. I agree with you that we need to switch. I'm recommending we go with Tactical. That's the lowest bidder. That's the one that will save us $30,000 over the 3 years. So, I mean, I'm not disputing anything you say about our current vendor. I'm suggesting we pick from one of the two unknown vendors at this point.
Is there any further discussion? There's a motion. If not, there's a motion that's been supported on the floor to, Julian, go ahead.
Just wanted to add this clarifying point that Securitas is currently billing us $40 an hour, $40.54. I mentioned that in the footnote in the table. So their proposal for this project goes down to 34. For some reason, they think that they can charge us 34 instead of 40 with the same contract, but that was their proposal. So any one of these three, well, two of the three would be a reduction from our current cost. Either Team Signal or Tactical would be lower than what we're currently paying Securitas.
Okay, any further
Can I make an amendment?
comments? You may
I'm
propose an
not sure if
amendment.
this is the right form, but that we approve Tactical Security Solutions.
Well, the motion on the floor is to support Team Signal, and that's been supported. So
Okay.
we need to vote on that, and depending on the outcome of that vote, another motion could be proposed. So if there's no further discussion, then I'll ask Councilwoman Salt to call the roll.
R,
No.
R, no. Measy?
Yes.
Measy, yes. Schaefer?
No.
Schaefer, no. Solt, no. Tyler?
Yes.
Tyler, yes. White?
Yes.
White, yes. Pestrunk?
No,
No.
the motion fails. I'll entertain another motion.
Okay, so, thank you. I will make a motion that we approve the bid that was submitted by Tactical Security Solutions.
Is there support for that motion?
I second.
Councilwoman Salt supports, seconds the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Yes.
What is the basis for supporting this one, outside of the dollar amount?
Do I have the floor on that?
Go
Or-
ahead. The motion was made by Councilman Schaefer. Do you want, or
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, who has the?
do you want to
We
speak
have a
to it?
second. Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
I think
So-
Councilwoman Salt
so
supported it.
The point is well taken, but what I was trying to say is we don't have any experience with either of them. So given that it is a substantial savings, that is by itself a good reason, it also, I like the idea that they seem not to be beholden. If they want to hire our current guard, that's fine. I'm a little uncomfortable that Team Signal sort of has agreed in advance that this is who we're going with. You know, and again, Tactical Security can employ whoever they want, but the substantially decreased revenue is also a major concern, and that's why I said if you add that to the savings, it's $150,000, and I think that's enough of a justification to at least give the first opportunity to Tactical.
So if I understand, the rationale for picking Tactical Security against Team Signal is solely dollars.
No, that's part of it, but I just prefer the fact that they there's been no implication that they are committed to hiring a certain person, which we don't have the right to tell a vendor who to hire. So I'm more comfortable that they seem to be more free there doesn't seem to be any sort of agreement that they are taking on somebody, which gives me more comfort.
I'm confused. Who agreed with who to hire somebody?
The Team Signal bid was presented as they have already agreed to take on our current ticket person, which somehow, and that honestly makes me a little uncomfortable.
Is Councilwoman Sol?
In answer to the question of what's the justification for this, it is cost. It is also having read the entire proposal, not just the, I believe, 4 pages that were submitted in the packet on Friday. I think they meet head-to-head the qualifications and background. And Team Signal is a franchise. So most of this proposal is boilerplate. This, I presume, is boilerplate provided by, like, to every proposal. So that makes me wonder a bit what the actual local provider can do. But we're talking one individual, 40 hours a week, coming and issuing parking tickets. I think this is a doable task for tactical security, and I'm also concerned about if we spend more money than we need to, what can we not do? Because we're, in my view, wasting money.
Councilman Measy?
Julian, what were the references for tactical security?
They were positive. Yeah, all three of these had very positive references. Yes.
Those references came from
Local
local
clients.
people we know?
No, I don't believe so, but all local clients, yeah. No, there's no, we're unique among municipalities around here in terms of issuing parking tickets. There's no, the other towns either have like a residential permit parking, something like that the Montgomery County Police might enforce, but we're a totally different setup.
Councilman Schaefer?
And just to be clear, if I understand, anybody that issues tickets has to be approved by the county. Is that, or the firm has to be approved by the county?
No, they have to have a state of Maryland security license.
And
the firm does, and the individual guard does.
Okay.
But there's nothing about the county that requires any approval.
No, but all of these, there's a threshold for anybody to be able to write tickets.
Right, they
on
have
our
to be.
behalf. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Is there any further discussion about the motion? Councilman Measy?
Yeah, just,
Turn your speaker on, Michael.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my thoughts good. The contract that we would have with tactical security can be canceled on certain notice, 60 days, is that what this would be?
We'll have a 60-day out clause, right. Yeah, and it'll be a three-year term with 60-day notice by either party.
So in other words, my concern is, you know,
and actually,
according to this wisdom here, tactical will have somebody, they'll assign somebody, and if they're doing a crappy job and they don't turn up and so on, and tactical doesn't respond, we can get out of that contract.
but we can always get out of the contract.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor White?
I'm a little confused. Does the village manager have the right to recommend that tactical hire Monica?
I've mentioned this to all the vendors that we have a very good guard on site that we would like to see stay here, and they all say that's terrific. In fact, that's preferred by them. They don't like to take on a new job without somebody there that they have to then provide somebody new who's never been there and doesn't know the job. So they all prefer having somebody held over from a previous contract on site if the client wants it.
As a council, are we giving Julian permission to do that?
Well,
Councilman
I think
Schaefer?
there's a difference between recommending someone and requiring it. And I'm not a lawyer, but we, and we can't tell a vendor who they have, like we can't tell our landscaper who cuts the trees. We can't tell Suburban Hospital what nurse they send over on Tuesdays. So I'm pretty sure we can make a recommendation, but we can't tell them you have to hire this person as a condition of getting the contract.
Councilwoman Tyler?
That's what my question was, and I was trying to get to that to understand. Did we require somebody to hire her? I thought the discussion always was that we'd recommend, you guys
Right.
like you recommend, the
Yeah,
same
we
thing
told,
with the
we
shuttle.
were very upfront with it. We told them we have a very good person that we'd like to stay here.
And the same
It's
thing.
not a contractual requirement. It's not-
Requirement.
It was not in the RFP notice.
And so we had that same discussion about the bus as well. Is that, yes, there are people
That's
that
right.
like a certain person who drives, but you tell the other company, if another company gets the contract, we really like this person, if you want to hire him. So I just want, that's what I was trying to get at, is to understand, because I know legally you can't demand and put that in a contract. You can recommend them, as your word said. Yeah, you would prefer to have somebody who knows where you are working.
Councilwoman Salt?
I don't think it's unreasonable that a vendor, when this discussion occurs before a contract is issued, that they understand it to be an implicit requirement. So to the extent that I've heard this happening other places, the conversation occurs after the contract is awarded. So no one thinks it's a condition, an informal, like secret requirement that has to be met. I am personally uncomfortable with this. I'm familiar with the federal system, and it would never be permitted. This would not even close. So I'm not comfortable with it at all.
Well, okay. Is there any further discussion? So there's a motion on the floor to issue the contract to Tactical Security. It was made by council.
Just a
Yes,
point
go
of
ahead.
information. Is it clear that Julian can, from what Martha's saying, I want to be clear that Julian can talk with whoever the contractor is about who to hire, that we're not barring that discussion.
I'm not sure it's a condition of, as I've heard it, it's not a condition of the contract, but
It's not a
certainly they can be made aware of the fact
Right.
that there is a present incumbent, and if they seek to employ that incumbent,
That's fine.
right, that's right, that's right. Any further discussion? The motion is to hire Tactical Security, made by Councilman Schaefer and supported by Councilwoman Salt. Councilwoman Salt, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, R,
Yes.
R4, Measy?
Yes.
Measy 4, Schaefer?
Yes.
Schaefer 4, Salt 4, Tyler? Tyler 4, White?
Yes.
White 4, Pestrunk?
Abstain.
Pestrunk abstain. Thank you.
Which takes us to the last item on the agenda for tonight, which is a discussion vote on authorizing staff members as designated signers for People's Bank Petty Cash Account, Village Manager Mansfield.
Yeah, this is, I guess it's not a follow-up from last month, but it should have been. Just as the council designated signers for the main new account at People's Bank, we also need a separate account, a smaller petty cash account that the staff is also authorized to sign. So we need authorization for the three main council signers, the treasurer, the chairman, and the mayor, along with myself, Jason, and Donna, to be eligible signers on this petty cash account.
Is there a motion to that effect? It's been moved by Councilman Measy. Is there support? Councilman R. Is there discussion? Councilman Schaefer?
I just have a question. So how much, when you replenish the account, how much goes into it?
We'll target about $1,000.
And that
we've
comes-
actually,
Okay.
for the capital bank account, we've had typically a little less than that, but I think
And-
the minimum requirement is 100, but we'll probably keep between 500 and
Okay.
1,000 in this account.
And that transfer would get approved by the current authorized signers? For the money to go into that account? from our main account? How does that happen?
Depends on how much it is. If it's a couple $100s,
No, I don't mean,
That would
I
be-
don't mean, I mean putting that $1,000 in, that would need to be, where is that coming from? The main
that would
account?
be coming from the main operating
So that would
account.
need approval by the signers? Is that a yes?
Presumably, okay.
Well, what
He's
would-
saying
what's
to
the
fund the
alternative?
account, to fund it.
Okay, yes.
All right, thank you.
So there's a motion on the floor to support the village manager's recommend. Yes, sure.
Thank you for answering like the 3 questions I already asked you by email, but there's one that I forgot to ask, which is, do you have a policy on the use of petty cash?
It's essentially just reimbursement for minor expenses, and it's typically only for like mileage reimbursement. If we're driving somewhere and we're getting reimbursed for mileage, which is usually a small amount.
So we're talking
But
below like
we're talking,
$200?
Yeah, we're talking minimal amounts.
Okay, I have no problem.
Any further discussion? Then the motion is to authorize the mayor, the chairperson, the treasurer, Julian, Jason, and Donna as signers on the village's petty cash account with People's Bank. Would you like to call the roll? You have another
Can I have
question?
a question about that motion? If
Sure.
we move it to another bank, then this motion is no longer valid. I would prefer not to say People's Bank, just to the petty cash account. Is that going to work?
I suspect that if we move it to another account, we're going to have to sign all the paperwork all over again, and we'll have to
That
specify.
would trigger all of this paperwork that I need you to
Yeah.
sign to be all done all over again with new resolutions.
Fair enough.
Okay. Councilman Salt, would you like to call roll?
R,
Yes.
R4, Measy? Measy 4, Schaefer?
Yes.
Schaefer 4, Salt 4, Tyler?
Yes.
Tyler 4, White?
Yes.
White 4, Pastrunk?
Abstain.
Pastrunk, thank you.
Seeing no further business on the agenda for tonight, is there a motion to adjourn? It's been moved. All those in favor say aye. We are adjourned at 8.